I'm not going to sing my story, I promise. We don't want the event to end early. I'm going to start by reading a quote by Byron Katie, who is an American author and speaker. She's written many fantastic books. The one that I'm referring to is called Loving What Is, and I would highly recommend that you read it. It kind of helps you change your thinking process about things. She says, "A thought is harmless unless we believe it. It's not our thoughts, but our attachment to our thoughts that causes suffering." In other words, it's what you believe about your thoughts, or the story that you're telling yourself about your thoughts, that's either going to cause you suffering if that's coming from a place of fear, or it's going to cause you peace or joy if that's coming from a place of love. And just to kind of back up, my financial story for most of my life was a story I told myself that was coming from a place of fear. I had a lot of negative stories in my head about me and money. And it really started when I was a kid, as it did for most of us, I think. And in my house, money was kind of this source of conflict and a lot of arguing and fear, and there was never enough. And my parents, were doing the best that they could. Nobody ever taught them how to budget, so they didn't know. My dad loved to spend money, and my mom wanted to save money, and so there was that going on too. And so my brothers and later my sister and I were just never given the tools for how to deal well with money. So when I got my first job at the age of 15 at an ice cream shop, somebody told me that was called a soda jerk. Yes, it was. I started making my own money, and immediately kind of did a little bit of what I saw both my parents doing, which was I would try to save it, like my mom would kind of try to save, and then the money would just sort of get whittled away somewhere. But my dad loved to spend money on things. That's how he made himself, I realized later, kind of feel better about things. And I figured out the same thing. I would get my paycheck and I would say I'm going to save a little bit of it, but I worked in the mall, so there were like clothing stores right down right down the way from me, and I would go in and I would buy clothes. And my parents we weren't poor, but they weren't going to get me the Guess jeans, or I'm dating myself now, like the Jordache and all that kind of stuff. And I was able to buy that for myself. It made me feel good. So my checks just kind of went places, and I didn't know, and I didn't keep track. I didn't know what was going on. So after I got older, I kind of continued the same patterns, and when I got into college, I got my first credit card. And boy, a credit card gives you lots of money on it, and there it is, and you can go to a store and you just whip that card out and put it in I guess at the time, I don't know how, I think they actually ran it through the thing, I'm dating myself again, but, and I would buy things, but I sort of would always get to the point, I kind of knew what my comfort level was with credit cards. I knew not to just put thousands and thousands of dollars on a credit card, because I would never pay that back. So I would put kind of just enough, and I would have a balance going, and I would owe it for a few months, and then I'd maybe get some Christmas money, or I would house sit for people, and I'd end up paying off the credit card. And I thought, I was doing pretty well. So that kind of continued all throughout my 20s and into my 30s. And when I was 34, I got married. And when I got married, my husband had just paid off a lot of credit card debt, and he said, "Why don't we just not have credit cards?" And I said, "That sounds fantastic. Let's do it. I bet we can do it." So we didn't have credit cards our whole marriage, which was great, but we also still didn't know how to budget. He kind of came from the same situation I did. He'd never been taught. I'd never been taught. But both of us worked full-time jobs, and he was an artist on the side, so we kind of did the same thing. He would get paid for a painting, and we would take that money, and we'd spend a lot of it, and we'd put some of it in savings, but then somehow the savings never quite lasted either. So just went on, we kind of continued and went on like that. So So he and I ended up getting a divorce, and when we got a divorce, I thought, you know what? I'm gonna get a credit card just in case, because I'm not quite sure what my financial situation is gonna be. I also bought him out of the house that we were living in, which was great. I got to stay there. And I moved on. I actually had a job kind of that was a long commute, and I moved back into town to got another job. But several things all sort of came together at the same time. And the first one is I had been working contract for some people, and they offered me a regular position, a salary position, and they said, but we're gonna pay you $10,000 less to do this. And I said, well, I can't pay my bills on that. And they said, well, that's sorry, if you have to leave, then that's okay. And I thought, well, I can't leave because I can't just quit my job. So I immediately found myself in a job that paid way less than what I could pay my bills on. I had a house payment now to make. I started running up more and more credit card debt, and part of that was legitimate because, wintertime would come and, I'd have to pay for heat and things like that. I had no money saved up in savings or none to speak of, but I also kind of continued and sort of built on that habit of add to cart makes you feel better. And it's very easy now to sit on your phone at night with Amazon and, you've had a bad day and you're like, it's just $15 and you add to cart. And another thing is I didn't want my daughter to feel any kind of lack. I just didn't want her to feel stressed out about money. I knew things were tight and I didn't want her to get to kind of catch that feeling. And so I just kept buying stuff. And I guess to sort of make this appearance to both me and her that things were okay, we were gonna be okay. Well, it all kind of came crashing down, and I got to a place and I thought, I'm gonna lose my house. So I wasn't sure quite what I was gonna do. I knew how to budget. By that point, I had sort of read all kinds of things online. I'd read books. I knew how to do a spreadsheet. I was keeping it all up. But the story that I told myself and that I believed was, I don't have enough money to even budget. Like, I can't control money, money controls me, is essentially what I was saying to myself. So about that time, I was on Facebook one night, and one of my friends posted about the Real Women, I can't remember what this event is. The Real Women in Real Money series, and she was a speaker at the event. I had no idea that she had gone, through some debt issues, and she was a single mom herself. And I thought, wow, that program sounds really fantastic. So I reached out to her on Facebook, and she and I messaged back and forth, and she was like, you've got to go in. It's unbelievable. It helped me so much. It totally, has turned my life around. So I made an appointment. I first took a basic budgeting class. Again, went into the class and was like, I know how to budget, I know what a budget is. And sat through the class and, learned some things. And I just thought, the community was so great though, and I just felt so supported. And I felt finally like there might be some hope. And during that class, they suggested, that if we wanted further help, we should go for one-on-one counseling. So I signed up for that, and I met with a woman named Keely, and she was super helpful. Told me all kinds of interesting things that I could do. We went through my whole budget. She made some suggestions as to how I could consolidate a lot of my debt. I ended up reaching out to my bank and was able to get some of that consolidated, and so I got into like a little bit better of a place. Shortly after that, and then of course I signed up for all the emails and stuff, and I got an email from, I guess it was Tamara, and she was talking about the Women's Money Club, and I thought, that sounds awesome. And it was a 6-week course, and we met every other Tuesday, and if you have not done the Women's Money Club, you've got to take it. It was fantastic. the community that we had, it was like going to therapy like every other week. You would just walk out of there, because not only do you talk about money, but you learn everybody's personal stories, and it's just very, it's just like such a great environment, and everybody really opens up and shares. I'm still friends with several of the women that were in the class. It was just amazing. But during that class, Tamara, and I've noticed this in several of the classes through On Track, she said, what I want you to do is really start envisioning, like, almost talk about, like, get a mantra or get a statement and say it to yourself every morning and tape it up on your mirror, like, I am good with money, or I attract money. And I thought, I mean, that sounds cool, but that's a little woo-woo. I mean, really, okay. So I sort of was like, oh, it sounds pretty good, whatever. And I kind of went on. But just around about that same time, I started reading another fantastic book called The Universe Has Your Back by Gabrielle Bernstein. And she kind of talked about the same thing, how you start putting things out there and all of a sudden good things start to happen for you. And so that just kind of struck a chord with me. And anyway, I'm gonna get back to that in a second. Because after the Women's Money Club, I did the side hustle, I call it the side hustle class. It's really how to earn extra money on the side. And I've always loved to write, and I thought I really have wanted to write for years and years and years, but I can't do it full time. There's no way I can make a living at it. Again, kind of telling myself a story. And but I just thought, you know, I'm just gonna start reaching out to people and see. Well, full circle, in the meantime, all of a sudden I thought, I am going to start telling myself I attract money. I'm going to decide that I'm going to get a job that I love, and it is going to be awesome, and I'm going to make more money. And I even started saying in my head exactly how much money I wanted to be making every year, plus $5,000 extra dollars. Like enough to pay my bills, plus $5,000. That was my mantra. So don't take this, like, I'm not up here trying to say, like, if you put it out there, it's going to come, and then you try to do it and it doesn't work, and then, you know, don't sue me. But I started putting it out there, and all of a sudden, out of the blue, I got a phone call from somebody, and he said, hey, you know what? We're looking for somebody like you at our office, and we really want you. They, like, really wanted me to come in and work for them. I said, that sounds great. It took a little while, and, you know, we kind of talked back and forth, and then they brought me in for an interview, and they sent me sort of an offer, or an offer letter, I guess. They sent me an offer, and I read it, and I thought, that's not enough money. Like, and my first thought was, but I really want to do this job. And then I thought, no. For the first time ever in my life, I thought, I'm just going to ask for more and see what happens. So I emailed them back, and I said, thank you so much, and I appreciate it. I really want to come work for you guys. But how about this? And I gave him a number, and within minutes, he emailed me back and said, sure, that's fine. And I was like, dang it, why didn't I ask for more? Next time I will. Next time I'll ask for more. The same time, I had a friend reach out to me, and she said, I hear that you're a writer, like that you can write. In my business that I work for, we need like a freelance writer on the side. And I said, okay. So things just started to happen. And again, you know, I don't know, it worked somehow. It started working. And I just started telling myself things like, I am good with money. Money is my friend. I actually talk to my money now, and this is kind of crazy sounding, but when I do my budget, I'll be like, all right, girl, so let's see, $20, why don't you go over here, and you can get me this, and da-da-da. And it just, I don't know, it makes me feel happy instead of sitting down and thinking, oh my gosh, how am I going to pay everything? I guess I'll end with this, and that is, I think what On Track has taught me the most, first of all, it's given me lots of great tools. It's given me some amazing ways to figure out sort of how to save and how to budget better. But I think what it's taught me most of all is that you're not alone in this. None of us are alone. I've learned how to deal with my stress in a lot better ways. Instead of adding to cart now, I've started meditating. I watch YouTube videos with my daughter, and we have lots of fun doing that. And it's just not, money is just not much of a stressful thing. Sometimes I still get stressed out about money. But what I've realized is that no matter what, I'm gonna be okay. Tomorrow, if the freelance called up and said the freelance is going away, or if I walked into work and they said, you know what, sorry, we're gonna have to let you go, something in me just knows I'm still gonna be okay. And that's what I wanna teach my daughter too, is that you can survive, and you have survived 100% of your worst days. I just read that quote the other day. You have survived 100% of your worst days. And I'm not good at statistics, but that seems like a pretty good success rate to me. And I'm going to end with another quote, and this is by Brené Brown, and she wrote a book called Daring Greatly. She's also given a fantastic TED Talk where she talks about vulnerability and courage and authenticity. And she says, owning our story can be hard, but not nearly as difficult as spending our lives running from it. Embracing our vulnerabilities is risky, but not nearly as dangerous as giving up on love and belonging and joy, the experiences that make us the most vulnerable. Only when we are brave enough to explore the darkness will we discover the infinite power of our light. And that's really resonated with me, and I think that that is what On Track does. It really helps you discover what your inner light is and what you can do with that. And through that, you start rewriting your financial story.